The presidents of United States and Russia are set to hold a telephonic conversation, and there will be another round of talks on security next month. The phone call will be covering Ukraine and Moscow's security demands from the West. This is going to be the second telephonic conversation between Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin in less than 1 month. Meanwhile, Russian President Putin told his American counterpart that he was convinced of effective dialogue between Moscow and Washington. This came hours ahead of the upcoming telephonic conversation. Earlier in December, Joe Biden warned Putin of severe consequences if Russia invades Ukraine. The National Security Council spokesperson of the U.S. has confirmed that the Biden administration will continue to engage in extensive diplomacy with the European allies and partners. Consultations and coordination on a common approach will carry on regarding Russia's military buildup along the border with Ukraine. According to senior U.S. officials, Biden will offer a diplomatic path forward on the Ukraine crisis. Western officials say that Russia has deployed tens of thousands of troops on the border with Ukraine. They fear a repeat of 2014 when Moscow seized Crimea. In an effort to diffuse tensions, senior U.S. and Russian officials plan to meet on the 10th of January in Geneva. The meeting will be held days after Russia offered a proposal to the U.S. It included calls to not expand NATO eastward or to set up bases in former Soviet republics.
Так, могу сообщить, что 10 января в Женеве планируются переговоры в формате межведомственной делегации России и США под руководством, я имею в виду российскую делегацию, заместителя министра иностранных дел нашей страны Сергея Рябкова и первого заместителя, речь идет уже о американской стороне, госсекретаря Уэнди Шерман.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has tweeted about Western support in countering Russian aggression. The U.S. has called some of the Russian positions non-starters, but said it is willing to talk and will also bring up its own concerns. The dialogue was set up when Biden and Putin met in Geneva in June.
В ходе переговоров будем добиваться от американской стороны предоставления твердых правовых гарантий безопасности Российской Федерации, а именно не продвижение НАТО на восток и не размещение угрожающих России систем вооружений у рубежов нашей страны.
On Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke over the phone. Blinken separately spoke to his counterparts from Britain, France and Germany. The U.S. State Department spokesperson said that Western foreign ministers affirmed the consensus among allies and partners to impose massive consequences and severe costs on Russia for its actions. The Biden administration has not laid out new measures. However, reports suggest that the U.S. could move to disconnect Russia from the SWIFT system that connects the world's banks. And our correspondent Susan Teherani is with us live on the broadcast from New York. Hi, Susan. Tell us more about what to expect from this conversation between the two leaders. What is America hoping to achieve through these talks?
Well, as you mentioned, this was a conversation that was at the request of the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, and some analysts are saying the reason the Russian president keeps initiating these talks is to give the impression that he's going to sort of lead the discussion when the two leaders decide to hold the formal talks on January 10th, and he wants to set the framework and the groundwork for those talks, sort of as a prelude. Whether that's true or not, it's yet to be seen. But this is sort of to go over what will be discussed in those discussions, and a host of issues, according to a backgrounder by White House officials, will be discussed. As anticipated, of course, it's going to be the issue of Ukraine, but U.S. officials have also said that they've put together a countermeasure package in case Russia decides to take any aggressive measures on the Ukrainian border. However, we do know that Russia has neither taken any measures or taken any measures back from the Ukrainian border. There has been sort of a standstill, and there isn't any expectation that that's going to happen before January 10th. So these are, preliminary talks to see what will be discussed on January 10th. But again, the devil's in the detail. The issue that Vladimir Putin keeps insisting to have these telephone conversations before the main discussions might be something to look into.
And what are the severe consequences that the U.S. and its allies are talking about, the measures that are being considered against Russia? To what extent is America mulling disconnecting Russia from the SWIFT system that connects the world's banks, and what would that mean?
Right. So there are a set of economic issues that the United States has put together, and one of them is to cut off Russia from the SWIFT banking system that it uses. Then there are sanctions against a set of Russian oligarchs. Russia has often sarcastically said that its officials are used to being sanctioned by the United States. Those economic measures are, on the one hand, a lot of Republicans and hardliners on Capitol Hill say that despite the fact that today, actually, Vladimir Putin said that he is excited to see the Nord Stream 2 pipeline get up and going. That's a pipeline deal between Russia and Germany, and how it would help Europe's energy problems. Perhaps the United States and the European Union can come together and sort of sanction part of the execution of that Nord Stream 2 pipeline as well. That would hit Russia hard. Of course, that would also need to get the blessings of Germany as well. That's on the economic front. But on the military front, there are a set of measures to, increase and accelerate the delivery of defensive weaponry to Ukraine, like helicopters and anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles that are effective against Russian ships. Now, this is one thing that a lot of military officials here are saying that the United States might want to do immediately, because in case there is even a slightest incursion on the part of Russia into Ukraine, that would be too little, too late, because that would, basically be useless. So that's one thing. And then another thing is, because the United States has said that it does not want any U.S. troops or NATO troops in Ukraine, perhaps go as far as beefing up some kind of Ukrainian resistance inside Ukraine. But, those are very harsh measures, and there is also the talk that whether or not Vladimir Putin really wants an incursion, an invasion, because at the end of the day, an invasion would mean an occupation, and does Russia really want that kind of occupation and that kind of headache on its border or not? So, those are some of the measures that the United States wants to take, but it's focusing on the economic measures. But the question is whether or not there'll be enough for Vladimir Putin to take a step back.
Indeed, a lot that remains to be answered as far as the current situation is concerned.